All right. Wednesday. Hopefully you guys' week is off to, it's not even a good start anymore. It's past Monday. So you're halfway through the week. You're on the downhill slide toward Thursday, Friday, making it through the work week. All my days run together. I don't know what day of the week it is most of the time until my assistant tells me in the morning and we're off and running. But hopefully your week is going well. Hopefully you're knocking it out. Whatever your goals are, you're chipping away at them. We got a lot of things to run through tonight before we get into the questions. But just to start off, I do always appreciate everybody that joins on Monday and Wednesday nights. Like, subscribe, share, all the fun stuff. If you do get value from this, all that does help the channel grow, and it is very much appreciated. All right. So on the macro side of things, because I know that's what you guys show up for, and you know, not everybody watches the whole deal every week. So I try to get into the stuff that is, the most important upfront, or at least updates on the market and where things are at. So I don't know if it was Monday or Tuesday. I believe it was yesterday, actually. Japan has come out and they are saying that they're going to be tokenizing their bond and stock market, moving to real-time settlement and the use of distributed ledger technology to facilitate that. I don't know about you guys, but the back half of this year is super bullish for specific digital assets that we know are going to be used in the financial system to facilitate that type of stuff. Tokenization of real world assets, everything moving on chain, big deal. A lot of liquidity is going to have to be moving through these networks and these tokens in order to be able to facilitate the actual use of this stuff. And, we're moving toward the repricing, the domino theory, and all the other fun things that we've been talking about for a long time. Look like they're imminently here on the horizon. On that topic, we had a couple things today. So the SEC came out and they've modernized crypto custody and their framework around that. So obviously, us at DAG, DAG Wealth, and our custodians have to stay on top of that type of stuff. As soon as I saw that come out today, within 30 minutes, my team was on it, making sure they know what that is, what they're thinking through. A lot of it we already have in place. But we have to stay on top of those things. So that was one. And then the other one was banks. Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and 20 plus other banks, including JP Morgan, are all on the precipice of rolling out their stablecoins. So I don't know about you guys, but that makes me think that the OCC just might be ready to issue their guidance on stablecoins. If the banks are ready and the OCC is ready, I think we might be just a few days away from getting that guidance from the OCC, which would be fantastic. You're going to see liquidity pour in to the crypto space like you've never seen before. I don't know if that ends up on Ethereum or Solana or wherever these stablecoins are going to be issued. Maybe the XRPL, like ROUSD, just a hunch. But big news there. And alongside that, I'm pulling this straight off of Watcher Guru's page here because they did report a lot of this good stuff today. If you don't follow that account over there on Twitter, I would encourage you to do so. A couple other things that I thought were interesting. Crypto-backed mortgages. Those are a thing. Milo is the main player in the market that does that for people with Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, and XRP. If you talk to him, sweet. You can go put that, basically post your crypto as your down payment. They will cross collateralize that with the property and then get you a 7 or 8% interest. It again depends on your credit and the underwriting of the property and a lot of other things. So don't quote them or tell them I told you what the interest rate was going to be. It is independent based on your circumstances and the property you're trying to finance. But they're willing to do that. And Coinbase has rolled that out. Crypto-backed mortgages, allowing borrowers to buy homes without selling their Bitcoin to face margin calls or facing margin calls. So I guess they're underwriting the downside risk on the volatility of these assets when you post it with a crypto-backed mortgage. Pretty cool. So, a lot of people planning on paying off their home or doing different things by selling their digital assets. You've then got the tax implications if there's price appreciation that's substantially different from the basis or the cost that you purchased the asset at. This is another viable way that you can leverage these assets, access liquidity, purchase properties, do other fun stuff with them without having to lose exposure in the upside over the long term on these assets. And then one of the other things I want to touch on that is going to become increasingly more relevant as time goes on here. OpenAI has come out and said that they are going to have AGI by the end of the year. I don't know about you guys. That is awesome and super scary all at the same time for me. So basically, it's an AI that can think for itself and have emotions. Very scary stuff, like Terminator, Skynet type stuff. And you guys know my thesis on Bitcoin. I think that a lot of that infrastructure and what they did with Bitcoin was to build out decentralized compute globally to be able to support AI at scale as we see this adoption. Because the infrastructure didn't exist before Bitcoin, but now it does. And a lot of these Bitcoin mining farms are now taking up contracts with Google and many other large AI companies to switch what they've put toward Bitcoin and point that toward compute power for them. Dev over here on TikTok says AGI is inevitable at this point, in my opinion. Just get over it. With this, how I'm feeling. I'm with you, right? The singularity, I do think if they don't already have it, it's coming quickly. And hope you're ready for it. The pace at which things are going to advance from here, we are on the precipice of going vertical. People know about Moore's law and how much more compute they have in chips over time, and the smaller the chips get. I was actually, last week we talked about this on Monday. I was at the conference down there for energy and AI and compute and digital assets that the Texas Blockchain Council hosted, and got to listen to a gentleman there. And we talked about why water is no longer going to be a viable resource to be able to cool these data centers. And it is because the compute power of these chips is increasing at such a rapid rate. Water is no longer going to be the resource. There's going to be a reduction of 90% of the water requirements for these data centers over the next 2 years. And it's going to be different ways that they're going to have to be able to cool these chips in these large data centers. And if the chips continue to get smaller, you don't have to have huge data centers. They will take up less and less real estate over time. Or you can pack more and more chips and make them more dense in their ability to run the compute for all of this stuff. So a lot of things advancing here. Some good news today. Seems like, the ball is rolling downhill at this point, or the snowball is rolling downhill and is aggregating size. And here for too long, I do think we're going to see the avalanche, the liquidity move into the crypto space, and specifically, in my opinion, XRP. And on that, nothing here is financial advice. It's always for entertainment and educational purposes. You should always do your own research, speak with a financial advisor before making any investment decisions. And any of my opinions are my opinions. They are not the opinions of Digital Ascension Group or any of our subsidiaries. So I've got one super chat that made it through. My wife with the tea.
It's the throat one.
I need the throat one. Thank you very much. The wonderful tea lady. Got one super chat that made it through from Monday. I may have missed more, but that's all that got emailed in and passed along to me. So I'm going to read this one before we get into the other fun super chats tonight. And again, appreciate you guys taking time out of your Wednesday to come hang out with me, ask great questions, and we'll go ahead and jump into it here. Adam, he says, I was curious what you thought about the increase in XRP ETF value over the last few days. For the life of me, I couldn't really figure out where it's coming from. Then I thought about the 24/5 stock trading as well as tokenized trading. Could this be another test on chain, or no test, partial implementation? None of these, just regular market action, or would just love your thoughts on this. I was actually going to look at the other chart, and this was Chart Nerd over there on Twitter. If you guys want to follow him, Chart Nerd TA. He posted this for the volume on the ETFs. Won't show it on the screen, but I'll read it off to you guys. Total volume for spot and derivative XRP ETFs over the last week has been nutty. We went from barely 5-10 million a day. Thursday, Friday last week, we did over 100 million in both, almost 200 million in both. The spot ETFs alone, we're at 100 million on Thursday. Dip below that, we're around 80, back to 100 on Monday. We touched 72 million yesterday, and we're down to about 62 million today in total spot ETF volume. So they are having to buy that XRP off the open market. Now, we haven't seen that affect exchanges. We saw some of that volume move onto exchanges and push the price from where it was around $1 up to $1.70 last week. We've pulled back here and cooled off. The RSI is back to oversold. So it wouldn't surprise me if XRP is able to reclaim around 142. If we can get through 142, I think we're back to rocking and rolling to the upside here for the rest of the week, which would be a fun ride. I'm looking forward to it. But a lot of that is driven by the institutional volume that is making its way onto exchanges. Once they get through the OTC desk and dark pools, all of that volume will move onto the exchanges. And as it sits right now, they're eating through it at a good clip. These derivatives don't have to buy the underlying asset; they're options contracts. So they're trading with the CME or another partner on that. Actually saw one of the ETF issuers, I think it was 21 shares, change from the CME to another market provider. They filed the S1 on that yesterday or today. So there's more liquidity in these ecosystems. When we first rolled out one of our products last year that involved futures, we weren't able to trade on the CME. We actually had to trade, I believe it was on Binance, because that was where the most volume for those derivatives were. And we could, actually kind of make markets because of the amount of XRP that we were putting to work, which was cool. Since then, we've seen a huge increase in the depth and liquidity in these derivatives markets for XRP. And I think that trend is only going to continue through the rest of the year. So continue to watch the ETF volume over there. What could be driving that? I think it's actually regulatory guidance from the SEC and the CFTC. When both of them came out last week and gave their guidance to the market, that's when we started to see the market move. I feel like institutions are feeling a lot more comfortable about the implementation and use of this technology. And we could be potentially on the precipice of that if we continue to see price move in the right direction. So that's what I think the catalyst is. Obviously we didn't get the Clarity Act. That's going to be 9/15. We're going to get the cloture vote. I don't think we're going to get it in 2026. I think it's going to be early 2027 when we finally see the Clarity Act codified into law. If during the midterms the Democrats take the House, it's going to be much more difficult to pass that back through because that's got to go to the Senate floor and back to the House in order to be able to pass it to the president's desk after that. And their priorities are going to be the SAVE Act. Post midterms, they're also going to be focused on the funding bill. They did get that across the line before the August recess that buys them until early December to get that worked through. So I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. I want the Clarity Act to pass just as bad as everybody else. But as long as we have guidance from the CFT and the SEC, I think we're golden. I think we're going to get tokenization of the stock market, implementation of this technology, and a lot of price once we see these stablecoins issued on these networks here in the near future. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the other super chats we got from tonight. We got Jeff, my man. He says, how do we start to exercise our LLC to buy assets one day without selling? What's a safe amount of money to start buying storage and condos for cash flow? Well, storage and condos are two very different things. I'll say that. Both of those you would want to fund subsidiary LLCs or use your holding company as the management company and form separate LLCs that owned those assets. When you did purchase them, you can finance them. If you haven't ever read, I don't know that I'll ever do business with Grant Cardone, but he does know his stuff when it comes to real estate. Check this book out. It gives you a lot of the terms and information and frameworks around the different math that goes along with acquiring different types of properties. He primarily talks about multifamily in that book and why he needs 32 to 34 doors so that there's a management company that will run it and he didn't have to be the one doing the day-to-day on it. Same thing goes for condos and storage, right? So depending on what scale you're trying to play on, those are very different dollar values, right? So I would find somebody that has been successful in either one of those endeavors and try to learn from them, participate in a fund that they manage and have done well with in the past. If you want it to be passive, if you want to be more active in your management of that type of stuff, just know you're going to run into some potholes if you don't find good mentors to be able to help you with it. We've had people come in the mastermind and talk about both of those different types of investments and the best practices around them and the math and what makes sense and what doesn't. So if you want to join the mastermind, if you're part of the mastermind, I would encourage you to go back and listen to those talks that we've had there from professionals that we've brought into the group to have that exact conversation on, the framework they use to invest in those types of things. And again, from your LLC, you basically borrow the money. You would then fund the new LLC with that. You could set up your LLC as the management company, or you can set it up as the owner. Depends on, how much liability these investments are going to have for you, and the potential lawsuits or issues that you could have with them. If you want to segregate yourself completely, you just set up the management company. Anyway, I would work with an estate planner. I would work with somebody that's seasoned, that's been doing that for a long time. And again, they're going to give you best practices on what to do. But there's a bunch of different ways you could skin that cat. Hopefully you've got a lot of money, in digital assets that you're able to then leverage or parlay into those opportunities. And I know I didn't really give you much there on specifics. That's also because it's not my game. I focus on digital assets, and that's what I do every single day. And I partner with people that are a lot smarter than me when we go outside the scope of my understanding. And I would encourage people to do the same. His next question is actually the same question. He's put it on here twice. So thank you for the super chat. Not sure why it got on there twice, but I appreciate the support and watching the channel. And again, have that stuff over there in the mastermind readily available for anybody that would like to go check it out. Here's another one again. He says, DAG LLC here. When the money rolls in, do you have advisors who can help me set up donations for animal shelters in the Tyler area? It's impossible to find a safe place for thrown away animals. Oh, it is very sad, my man. I don't know if it's Tyler, Texas, but not very far from that, actually, is where I live. Maybe a different Tyler in another state. But yeah, I mean, setting up donations to be able to establish the animal shelters, it sounds like those don't exist. And so you're looking to form a foundation or a 501c3 in order to be able to stand that up and start facilitating that service and take donations from other people. You could probably reach out to large public charities. What's the SBA? The sad commercials online where you see the dogs and animals and they ask you to donate $10. I think it's the SPCA. You could reach out to them. So if you have a private foundation or a 501c3 that provides a specific service, these public charities that do, raise capital or take donations for those things, they are required to dole out, at least on a private foundation side, it's 5% of your public charities or a bit more. Again, want to work with an advisor. We do have people on staff that are very familiar with all of those things and can help people make charitable contributions to causes that they feel, are what's on their heart to do to bless other people and help make an impact. So yes, would be the answer to that. We're happy to work with you in that situation when it does transpire. He is on a roll with these super chats. He had them lined up tonight. Here he is again. He says, say our crypto hits $2 million. How can I immediately start living off the interest? I'd be comfortable with $12K a month. So at $2 million, a 10% return on $2 million would be $200 million a year. That's pretty aggressive. You're going to have to take some higher risk stuff to get a blended return of 10%. To live off of 12K comfortably and have your assets parked in low risk, you would probably need somewhere around $6 million. 12K a month times 12 would be $144,000 a year. Well, so maybe not. I was thinking 240 for some reason. It's late for me and my brain's not working for math. So let's call it 150K a year. Now, that's pre-taxes. So any income you're generating off these assets would be taxable. So you're probably going to need to be closer to that 200, 240 realistically. So let's call it $4 million at 5%. You could conservatively earn 5% on $4 million and generate $200,000 a year, and post taxes would be about what you would need the 12K a month there. There will be ways to be able to post your digital assets inside liquidity pools or with prime brokers or other counterparties that we're all working on at DAG Wealth in order to be able to help facilitate that. And that would be the low risk way to do it. And if yields continue to rise, you could probably clip the 5% on it. If that is the blended return you're looking for, it's probably going to take, the majority of that's going to go into something that's low risk. And then you might escalate up the risk curve a little bit on some of the other products or, liquidity pools or vaults or different things that you could participate in DeFi inside of institutional custody. And the blended return would pay you around 5% on that $4 million. So I don't know that you're going to be able to get there with $2 million to the amount that you're looking for comfortably at the risk tolerance that you may have. I don't know what age you are. So you may be younger and you may have a higher risk tolerance or risk capacity. Those are two different things that we talked about in a recent webinar with our CFA over there at DAG Wealth, Tom Teal. He's a certified financial planner. He runs that division of our company. And he talked about risk capacity and risk tolerance. So if you are older, your capacity for risk, whether you have a higher risk tolerance or not, is lower. So I can confidently say by the end of the year, we will have a variety of products that we roll out in order to be able to have a blended return to be able to put you in a position to accommodate what you're looking for there, as long as we see the appreciation on the assets that we all know is coming. Alcatraz, for you. That's an interesting name. They say, Jake, my man, any thoughts on Uptrade brokerage as a place for institutional custody until working with DAG? Appreciate you. I know you're biased. I am biased. We've talked to Uptrade. So I believe that gentleman broke off of Caleb and Brown. He helped them build their business. And then when they were acquired, I think he stepped away and started that other brokerage there in Australia. Similar deal, right? Fireblocks instance, MPC technology. My definition, so I won't speak to anybody else. My definition of institutional custody requires 5 things, okay? So if it doesn't meet these 5 things, I don't consider it institutional custody. You could still consider it institutional custody because that's something that's thrown around in the crypto space. But this is my definition, okay? So segregated accounts, bankruptcy remote, insured, using HSM technology, and it's got a qualified custody like the OCC or somebody else regulating that institution. It is a qualified custodian. That would be my definition, right? So places that would meet that: Fidelity, Ripple, Paxos, BitGo, Anchorage. I think Kraken applied for their charter as well. They may have already received that. Those are the types of institutional custody that I would consider institutional custody. A Fireblocks instance meets a few of those. So they have MPC technology, which is not including HSMs or hardware security modules. That's not going to meet FIPS compliance in order to be able to meet the qualified custody standards here in the US. And again, the SEC's just rolled out new frameworks around custody here in the US that our team is reviewing. The Fireblocks instance does have segregation, which is good. At least your assets are not pooled. There is some level of insurance on it. It is not bankruptcy remote in most circumstances. So just be, again, when you're looking through these things, these are the questions that I ask people when we're looking to partner with them and have a conversation about custody. Do you meet these 5 things? And if they don't, we're hesitant to, work with them in that capacity. And there are good players in the market that do have all of those 5 things. So, but to your point, if you're further downstream, you may not have, the amount of assets required to participate in one of those ecosystems. And there are a lot of good providers out there like Upshift and Caleb and Brown and other brokerages that do a good job. So, Perpetual nap mode. He's always taking a nap. He says, Jake, Where does DTCC say they'll use XRP? Domestic clearing is US to USD or USD to USD and netted via CNS. Is there an SEC filing, or is this just FX hype? Good question. So they have never specifically in any documentation ever stated that they would utilize XRP with the DTCC. When I talk about that, I am referring to Project Ion. Okay, and again, speculation. That's kind of part of this game. Once it's out publicly, you're probably too late, right? So it is USD to USD. Atomic swaps and settlement could facilitate trading with the DTCC because you're exchanging dollars for whatever the tokenized stock is. However, if it was a stock-to-stock trade and the other counterparty didn't want that stock, or you wanted to utilize a different currency than USD to participate in the market, through a DEX, that would be possible. So Corda is who partnered with, well, it was R3 who partnered with the DTCC on Project Ion. That was finalized in August of 2022. So if you want to go give that a Google, go check it out. From my understanding, that's been running in tandem with the back end of the stock market since then to be able to trial it for 4 years before implementation, which is where we're at now. And they're going to need to have trialed something for an extended period of time to make sure that it's not going to have any downtime or issues. So it's not just going to be something that popped up here recently in the last year that they're going to be leveraging in that capacity. Just institutions move very slow, they're methodical, and there's a lot of throughput and potential issues for the rollout of this technology, right? If they don't do it the right way and there's problems, the stock market's shut down, right? And so that's why they haven't moved to T+0 yet. There's not enough liquidity in these networks to be able to facilitate that and settle that real time on the back end until there is, and then they will move there. But that's my speculation based on, we worked with R3 on a POC. I can't talk about what that was, but in some of those conversations, we asked them, what would we use to settle between the instances that we were structuring? And they said, we're only going to use something that has clarity and enough liquidity in it. As it sits today, Solana doesn't have clarity, even though R3 is now integrated with Solana. XDC doesn't have clarity, even though Corda it could also settle through XDC. Neither of those have enough liquidity. The only thing that has clarity is Bitcoin and XRP here in the US. So until the Clarity Act is technically passed, the rest of the industry is pretty well handicapped. And again, this is from R3 directly. They're not going to use anything that doesn't have clarity here in the US. So with XRP being its primary settlement mechanism, with the lawsuit that they had with Ripple back in 2014, 2015, and their settlement in 1.04 billion XRP, which was received by R3 back then, it's my opinion, again, just my opinion, one guy on the internet, that is the asset that they will use for the back-end settlement inside that infrastructure that they built out with the DTCC and Project Ion. So take it with a grain of salt. It sounds like you're doing a good job doing your own research. Continue to do that, listen to other people, but that is my opinion. Jeff, again, my man, he's on fire tonight. He says, why does no one talk about XLM, HBAR, XDC, Flare, except price potential? I love to lose. I love to lose in the mastermind. 25, haha, still middle class. I'm just glad you're in there, brother. Hopefully you're getting a lot of value from the group. Sounds like you are. He says, I can't wait to travel and meet others and find other humans to invest with. That'll be freedom. It's the whole point of the group. Community. You're going to get access to people all across the world. We have people from every single country almost, or different places. Probably not every single country because there's, over 200 countries in the world. Definitely have the UK. We have Canada. We have Australia. We have Japan. We have Brazil. US, obviously. Middle East, UAE, EU, you name it. We have people in the mastermind from there. So, yeah, I think you'll definitely be able to travel and you'll know somebody pretty much everywhere in the world. So when you go travel there, you'll have a cool person to come have a conversation with. They can show you the sites and hang out and have a good time. And you guys can share the bond of being invested in XRP and enjoying the ride that we've all been on. But coming back to, the other assets that you mentioned there, I've made content on all of those assets. I think that they've kind of fallen out of the spotlight just because of the bear market here. It's not that the technology is bad on any one of those. There's just not enough liquidity in them for the institutions to get excited about them yet. So a lot of the conversations that we have, we want to create products and solutions for our clients that are holding those assets. We can custody all of those assets except Flare currently at Anchorage. And we'll be announcing some new custodians here in the near future, which will be exciting. But because of the LTV that's available or liquidity against those assets, because of their volatility and the underwriting risk on them and how liquid they are, and also, like I mentioned before, the derivatives market for XRP is just so much larger than those assets. It's difficult to create strategies around that. So, I mean, you could post, as an example, like I'll run you down XLM, okay? We could get, thank you, appreciate the polo. Appreciate DFW Mike on the polo. Texas with the XRP on here. We can get like 20 or 30% LTV against XLM. So let's say we have, I mean, we probably have 25 or 30 million XDC under management. So if we created a product for that and we were able to get 20% LTV, you still got to have, you have a hurdle rate for the loan. So let's say it's a reasonable interest rate of 5% and we've got 20% LTV against the asset. We would have to make 25% on that amount in the market just to cover the interest to be able to pay back the debt before there was any returns to pass to the investors. See what I'm saying? Like the amount of risk that you would have to take with that just to be able to cover the hurdle rate isn't there yet. As the value of the asset increases, as risk becomes less in the market, the LTV against that asset will come up substantially. So if you could borrow 80 or 90% against that, now we don't ever trade the full amount either, because if there's volatility, we don't want to lose the assets. So, and this is anybody else too, just so you understand, like this is how this works when people post these assets as collateral. There's all these different considerations that they have to run through. Even in these vaults and these DeFi protocols, this is how this works. There's not another way to do it. There's no native staking mechanism on these networks except for XDC. If you pool it and you have 10 million in a pool where you can earn some yield on that. And that's kind of separate of HBAR and XLM. Flare also has some native yield to it. So, but for those two assets in particular, they're more of a collateral asset. And until the risk comes down in the market, the LTV comes up, the interest rates come down to be able to get lines of credit against it. Then the economics start to make sense where you would be able to, you know, clear the hurdle rate or the lower hurdle rate. And plus you got way more liquidity that you could deploy to be able to actually earn returns as utilizing those assets as collateral or in liquidity pools or other circumstances. So that's the barrier that we're all up against. It's just where the market's at the moment. And hopefully that gives you some insight into why those products don't exist yet. And maybe why, you know, not as many people are as hyped about those as we see some of the other assets like Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, and XRP. It really comes down to liquidity. Let's see here. We've got Tappin with Ali. What's up, man? Jake Bezos. I appreciate the kind words and the compliment, my man. He says the energy crisis will be everywhere. The liquidity crisis will be everywhere. On-demand liquidity will have to be everywhere, all at once. XRP. Cheers, my brother. I would agree with your sentiment. I don't see another way around it. And I did two podcasts today. On one of the podcasts, we actually came to the end of it. And, you know, people are asking me recently, like, what would debunk your theory? You know, what situation would have to transpire for you to say, you know, I concede and roll over, I was wrong. You know, if we see T+0 settlement on the back end of the stock market, and we haven't seen a higher price XRP, that's really kind of the point where I would concede. That may take until 27. I'm still confident in this year, but excuse me. We've got, you know, December 6th this year, they're moving to 24.5, or excuse me, 23.5 trading. There's still an hour there that they could reconcile those trades and still keep trading at T+1. So I think XRP's got to be substantially higher price. They're definitely going to need it to move to 24/5 trading. And as soon as they move, they already have the option to move to T+0 utilizing a digital asset. May 28th of 2024, when they moved to T+1 for back-end settlement on the stock market, they have the option to settle real time via a digital asset if you go read that documentation when that transition took place. So again, confident that we're going to see significantly higher price for XRP this year in order to be able to facilitate that and move to T+0 for reconciliation and settlement. Because again, when Monica Long interviewed president of NASDAQ last year at Swell, that's what she said. The first place we're going to be implementing distributed ledger technology is on the back end of the stock market with the DTCC for reconciliation of trades and settlement. And why would she be at Swell talking to Ripple if there wasn't a there? But I agree with you. When all of this unfolds, we are going to have to see a very high price XRP very quickly in order to avoid the crisis. And, kind of circling back to the conversation I was having, what would debunk things? The gentleman I was speaking to also said, like, if somebody was going to debunk your theory, I think that they would have to come with their own thesis of an alternative option. And he was like, I've thought through pretty much anything that they could do, and I really can't come to another conclusion other than to use XRP. There's not another asset that works in the same capacity, that has the same benefits, that's not already a high price, that could be repriced much higher to be able to offset the debts on these balance sheets and accomplish all these objectives in one fell swoop. So if anybody has it out there, if you've got an alternative theory or narrative that you believe is concrete and works, I would love to hear it. I'm always open to new information and data. I encourage you guys to be too. I'm not the end all be all. I'm humble enough to know I'm not that smart. I know about a few things, but I'm not that smart in comparison to a lot of other people in a lot of other aspects, and would love to have somebody else come up with a solution other than, revalue gold to $100,000. That doesn't settle the back end of the stock market. There's just a lot of things there. There's multiple pieces that have to happen. Crypto finance. Good to see you again. He says, hey, Jake, why are there two ends to summer? Monday 9/7 and Monday 9/21, and which is better for XRP? He's always asking the prices and dates. If XRP reaches $5 just before the reverse carry trade, would it drop 10, 30, 50% to the reverse carry trade and the market downturn? My hypothesis or my thesis is actually that they're going to run this up to somewhere between 50 and $100 before the reverse carry trade happens. That's my best guess, because I'm with you. I think there's going to be a significant pullback in the asset when all of that transpires. I think the bottom's in. I think we're in for a really fun run here toward the end of the year. And I anticipate a big move prior to the reverse carry trade unwinding. With all of the liquidity that's in the stock market and these other ETFs, I think you're going to see a rotation out of those other positions into XRP in order to be able to drive the price to where it needs to be. And then we will have, issues with Tether. We'll have issues with reverse carry trade, and there likely will be a pullback. I don't know how much capability people are going to have to buy during that time frame. If the exchanges are having issues because of Tether and the world's having a liquidity crisis, your bank won't be sending money. Everything will lock up for a short period of time until they're able to, switch over to instant settlement and jumpstart the economy and the velocity of money in order to be able to pull us out of the hole. So again, just my thesis, just one man's opinion. Watch other people, come to your own conclusions, do your own research, and it's not financial advice, but that is what I think is going to play out. Sweet mama. Appreciate you on the super chat. No question. If I see it further down, I will grab it. That name's hard to miss. Oh, here she is. There you go. Sweet mama again says, Jake, blessings to you and the tea lady. Thank you very much. Same to you and your family. My husband and I felt led to our faith to buy XRP. Onboarding with DAG next week. Glad to be working with you. Is there who works best with faith-led investors just like us so we can request them? We have multiple advisors that are very God-fearing people. And, try to cultivate that within our company. I don't force my faith on anybody. I don't use it as my platform, but we've tended to attract the right people. Similar to, you know, I'm not saying you were led here or any of that, but there's something about this asset. There's something about where this is headed and the blessings that we're going to receive in order to be able to impact other people's lives and share in that is consistent across almost all of our client base and much of our employees as well. So depends on where you are geographically. The two that jump to mind are Tish Troutman. She's here in Dallas with me. And actually the head of our advisors alongside Tom Teal, Joe Slattery. Both of them are very faith-based, and I'm sure would love to have a conversation with you. And I think you would feel very happy to meet both of them. All right. Wish old Digital Dave, not Digital Dave, Digital Outlook. I love Dave, by the way. I don't know if you guys watch his content or not, but you should go check him out. Drinks his coffee and has a good time, and a lot of good information over there, him and Judy. About to be beyond broke. He says, catching 4 lives from Jake this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. It's actually Thursday. Friday, I've got dinner here in Dallas with my wife. Thursday, I will be on the Crypto Verdict. So Mondays was my live. Last night I did, you know, Johnny and Abs. Tonight's my live again, and then I've got the Crypto Verdict tomorrow night. So running a marathon this week, but loving every second of it. He says, how lucky are we? I am tempted to skip work tomorrow and play in the mastermind to make it a full week. Thanks for all the education and entertainment you provide. We are so close. I agree, my man. With the news that came out today around the stablecoins and where that's headed, alongside the SEC and the CFTC leaning in here and pushing this forward, I don't see any way that we cannot be, you know, on the precipice of the adoption of this and therefore a lot of liquidity moving into the space. And again, appreciate you being part of the mastermind. I'm sure that there will be lots of fun topics come Saturday morning when we do the town hall. Kurt, Mr. Mathis, he says, Mastermind, LLC, Anchorage, Hitchhikers, GTTG, Q to Universe was answered 42 after millions of years by Donald Trump making computer called Earth. The XRP reverse carry trade Q will be answered by question. I guess Q is question by Earth as well. Note Earth destroyed by aliens 5 minutes before. It's a little out there, but I think I understand the premise of it. You know, I've told you guys before, I think we're in for a transition in our government, in society. There's going to be a lot of things that change and shift over the next few years as we see the implementation of AI and blockchain at scale. The convergence of those two things is like 1 + 1 = 7. Like it is a multiplier that we've never seen before. This will be the 4th industrial revolution that we go through as a human race. And a lot of people are going to lose purpose. They're not, you know, most people find purpose in their work. And we're going to really have to redefine that. I'm excited though. I think we're going to go through a renaissance period. I think people are actually going to be able to have, you know, most of their lively needs, their survival needs met. Home, food, water, clothes, all of that will be much cheaper and much more easy to afford, either through UBI or other mechanisms that cause the prices of those things to come down. And you'll be able to allocate time to your passions, your hobbies, the things that you were called to do that you don't have time for because you're working a 9 to 5 just trying to pay your bills. So you can look at it as, you know, a dystopian future where Big Brother and all these things are going to happen, or you can look at it with the silver lining that, you know, people are going to have a lot more time on their hands to dedicate to the things that we're good at as people. Sony, they say DAG advisor agreement paragraph says advisors get 20% performance fees on anything above 8% annual return. That seems very high to me. Can you explain exactly how that would apply to the XRP yields and other investments, the 20% take from the investment gains, the yield, or something else, and how will that play into the yield product? So we structured this bit specifically because I wanted it this way. We take no upside on the assets. So XRP's appreciation is subtracted from any additional returns we generate. So it's not like, you know, your XRP goes to $1,000 and we get 20% of that over 8%. No. I was very explicit that is not the case. And that should be how it's stated in there. We worked with legal counsel to structure that the right way, but that is how it's determined. So we pull out the appreciation of the underlying asset. That was your investment. We didn't tell you to make that investment. Any appreciation on that, we shouldn't be compensated for. We need to make you an additional 8% beyond the appreciation on your digital assets. And then, and only that's the high watermark. It's almost like a preferred return that you would get on a real estate investment. And normally on a real estate investment, there's a 2% catch up. So, you know, the first 8% goes to the investors, the next 2% goes to the GP, and then after that, they go 80-20 on any additional returns. We didn't even do the catch up. We just took 20% after the 8%. So we have AUM fees, right? That keeps the lights on, does the compliance, all the other stuff. We're able to pay our people and do what we need to. And I didn't feel right charging performance fees unless we're actually generating additional value beyond 8% to our clients. So that's how it's structured. And I know, you know, if you're looking at that and it doesn't explicitly state outside the appreciation of XRP, it would be hard to determine that that's the case. But that is how we structure that. We've not been able to do that up to this point, again, for many of the reasons I just disclosed earlier on how these products are structured and, you know, the credit lines and cost and hurdle rate and all of that. And also every single year that resets. So on December 31st, whatever the value of your portfolio is denominated in the assets themselves, sets the new high watermark. And then we have to generate an additional 8% beyond the appreciation of the assets the next year in order to participate and have performance fees. So I don't know that we will ever get performance fees on clients' portfolios the way that we've structured it. You know, if we're doing our job as fiduciaries, the blended return for people is likely going to be somewhere between 5 and 9% on the average one. There may be some, you know, edge cases where we have some products that perform really, really well and generate substantial returns for our client base, which is awesome. I don't think anybody's going to be mad about that. And if we do exceed that additional 8% in addition to the appreciation on your assets, that's where we would finally get a cut. Other than that, we just have the AUM fees. So again, you know, dealing with different real estate investments and private equity, most people go 2 and 20 on the whole thing. If it's a hedge fund or private equity fund, they're taking your money, they're deploying it, they're, you know, time and resources, they're taking a management fee every single year at 2%. And then they're, in addition to that, they're taking 20% of all the profit. We at least have an 8% hurdle rate in addition to the appreciation on the assets before we ever shared at a 20% performance fee. Blue, he says the OCC finally says regs by November. Strategic oil reserves burn through 252 million level by November. Stock market 24-hour settlement in October. It's actually not 24-hour settlement in October. Again, they're going to be moving to 23.5 in December of this year. If all three things happen and the President of the United States stops oil sales and XRP has no price appreciation by mid-November, is the domino theory flawed as to XRP? Not necessarily, but yeah, many of the statements, like all of this is predicated on the perfect storm, right? So to get to these sky-high prices that a lot of us are looking forward to, it is the absolute perfect storm that takes place and everything unfolds in a very specific fashion in order to be able to drive the price there. If we get to T0 settlement on the back end of the stock market, which could happen anytime, like I just mentioned, they have the capability to do that right now because of the way that they passed T+1 back in May of 2024. If they move to T+0 and XRP is not utilized in that capacity, I would have to rethink a lot of things, candidly. Could that happen by November? Again, they're not moving to 23.5 until December 6th of this year. But at that point, if it is T0 and they're trading 23.5 through a tokenized stock market, and we don't see a substantially higher price XRP, it would be flawed, and I would have to come out publicly and say, hey, look, like something's off here. And when that happens, I'm happy to do that. I have, like I said, I have an ego just like anybody else does, but I am humble enough to know that I am not the end all be all. And I would do that, but I don't think I'm going to have to. This person, because I'm going to butcher their name, thank you for the super chat. They say, hey, Jake, in the mastermind, glad to have you in the group. Also in the middle of onboarding with DAG, any updates on Sharia compliant XRP product? Hi to the tea lady. It's a good question. So we plan on international expansion to the UAE probably mid next year, based on the timeline for our raise and the other stuff that we're working on. It's not a super high priority, just candidly, with all the other things that we have on our plate. We would probably have to work with counterparties in the Middle East in order to be able to facilitate that. And the reason I say that is just the economics and the way that people participate in markets here in the US. A lot of that is interest bearing. It's not a fee or structured fee type situation where it's a flat rate. So I'm familiar with some Sharia compliance and how that's structured and the regulations around it. But I would much rather work with the most sophisticated people there in Dubai or Abu Dhabi in order to structure that product appropriately and work with counterparties there that are accustomed to operating in that fashion. So once we move into that jurisdiction and we have market share and people are wanting to work with us, at that point, we would then focus our attention on it. So again, probably middle of next year, if I was going to guess. Rockcorp, good to see you. He says, Mr. Claver, the legend. I appreciate you, my dude. My theory is 5 equals 2025 for most recent all-time high, 8 equals 2028 for next all-time high, 9 is 2029 for all-time high highest, then bear market. So you're kind of referring to the 589 riddle, right? Those numbers can mean a lot of things. So if you add them up, they equal 22. There's 22 cards in the tarot. If you multiply them, you get 360, which is the degrees of a circle. You've got COMEX 589 rule. You've got the Epstein document for 589. There's a repeating pattern around 589. And it really comes down to transitions from one system to another, death and rebirth, all those things that are symbolic in this community and all the lore. I think, if we'll just go down the rabbit hole of the riddles here for a second, because I know you guys like that occasionally. For those that don't know what this is, just ignore this piece and skip to the next question. But Bearable Guy, when he put out the riddle back in 2019, 2018 with the chalkboard and 589 on it, there was another one that was 589 plus for, the end of 2018, end of year 2018. We are weeks away from the end of the year 2018 in the Ethiopian calendar. September 11th this year would be the end of the year 2018 in the Ethiopian calendar. Really interesting. All this stuff is culminating right here throughout this time frame. The other gentleman had asked about the end of summer. I've said it's going to be a hot girl summer. I'm still sticking to that. My end of summer would be Labor Day, which to his point, 9/7. I think that we could still see substantial price appreciation and a lot of fun between here and there. And that's not that far in the future. Like it's literally like 2 weeks away. So, continue to watch the price rise. We've consolidated here. Again, I said this at the beginning, but I think if XRP can get back through $1.42, we're going to start to rock and roll again to the upside and move back the other direction in a pretty aggressive manner. I do think we've swept the bottom here at $1.36. I'm not a TA guy, so don't take anything here, take it all with a grain of salt. I am very ignorant when it comes to all this stuff. I'm listening to people that are smarter than me on the TA. They did think we would come down and sweep the lows here around 132 to 136. We've touched 136, and then we've rebounded off of that, and we've reclaimed 140. I think if we can get through 142, back to the upside. And I do think that move will be aggressive again, just like we saw, last week. So, we have a higher candles, larger moves, like we did in November of 2024. We're back at all-time highs in a very short period of time, and then it's nothing but air for a while after that to be able to get price discovery on XRP. And again, all that could play out here in just the next couple weeks. If you've never been part of a bull run before, I think we are in a bull run right now. I think it's taken a breath in the market after a big move, and we're about to see another big one coming up. Tanisha, they say, hey, Jank, how do we get knowledge of new upcoming tokens while they are still cost fractions of a penny? The ones that have the potential, not just any old token. Research. Unfortunately, there are some groups out there, not our group, that actually do that. They are researching brand new tokens all the time. They're telling their community about those. The trouble that you run into with that, especially in a community-driven investing environment, is manipulation in the market. The SEC is not going to look very kindly on that at this point. We stay away from that. We don't do it. I talk about my investments. You invest in whatever you want to invest in. I don't tell people trades or how to move or what to do. There are other groups that do that, though, and there are other people that make a lot of money. Actually, Cashew Nate put out a video earlier today about a trade group that he's in. I have never heard of it before. He said that he made some good calls here in the early part of the bull run and made some money on it. No idea if it's good, bad, ugly, and different. But I like Cashew Nate, and I think he's a sharp guy. So you might go check out his channel and figure out what group that is, if that's something that you're interested in order to be able to find tokens that are being listed that you can participate in. Oftentimes, they're not going to be listed on big exchanges. You're going to have to go to smaller exchanges or through a DEX or like Uniswap or something in order to be able to get an allocation. You're probably going to have to be a bit more sophisticated with DeFi in order to get access to some of this stuff before the big boys do and they list it on an exchange. That's always a big move in tokens as well, as if you kind of catch wind that things are going to be listed on an exchange before they happen. You can kind of ride that wave. Again, not telling people to have insider trading information or any of that. I'm just, talking about things that I've seen happen in the market. So that would be my recommendation. I'd go check out Cashew Nate and his channel and the most recent video that he made. Again, I'm not advocating for the counterparty that he's talking to you about. He probably has an affiliate relationship with them that I'm sure he would disclose. It seems like he's making money with it. I have no clue, but if that's what you're looking for, might be a good option. Tina Cole, El Presidente. I do not ever want to be involved in politics, just so you guys know. That is not my shtick. That's not my intention. So El Presidente, thank you for the kind words and the support. But I don't know that I want that title. He says, you rate HBAR highly. While it does have great technology, adoption, relationships, it has poor tokenomics. Fees are only in fiat, ad hoc buybacks, and staking can't replace the utility burn mechanism. Thoughts? That's a fair criticism of HBAR. I actually also believe that is one of the reasons that the institutions will adopt that network. Fees are fixed and they're dollar denominated. So as the price of HBAR continues to appreciate, as more and more of it is locked up for multiple reasons, and there's less on the market to facilitate trades and pay for fees, you would see a higher price over the long term, and the fees on the network won't increase for the people that are utilizing it. So I actually view that as a good thing for institutional adoption. To your point, if it is a retail-driven market or bootstrapped or roots movement, a token burn mechanism like Hype is much better to push price up more aggressively. So, HBAR I think is more of a long-term play. It's kind of a slow grow. There will be moments and times where there's an aggressive move that I think will then, kind of trend back off as the technology is adopted for different applications. But it is a longer-term investment versus something like a Hype or something else that has a a burn mechanism that's eating supply off the market at a rapid pace, excuse me. DFW Mike, my man, good to see you, dude. I've got your shirt on. Appreciate you. He says, evening legend and the tea lady. Honest Aim is a plethora of knowledge and kindness. The mastermind is loaded with good, pertinent information. Thank you for everything that you do, you and Max and all the mods. Take care. Oh, and nice shirt. He's got the hookup. No, I say this all the time, and I still don't say it enough. I feel so blessed and grateful for all the good people that are surrounding us and what we're doing. We have so many good people in the mastermind that, like you said, are a cornucopia of knowledge. They have an abundance of knowledge about different topics, and they're so willing to give their time and help other people. I've said this before, but if you were to go talk to a billionaire or somebody that's 40 steps ahead of you, it's hard for them to even go back to the time when they were at your level. They can give you tangible things that they're doing in their life then that would make a material difference if you're close to their level, 2 or 3 steps behind. But we have so many people across different parts of their journey in the mastermind that you're never going to come across, a point where you don't have somebody that you can talk to that can help you mitigate risk or walk you through potholes or issues around things, because everybody's going through the same journey and everybody's at, fairly advanced points. And we also have a ton of beginners there in the group. So Honest Aim and his wife are awesome for sure. They've done, again, a ton of just their own study over the past 3 years that they've been in the group in order to be able to come to the knowledge base that they have around mission statement, core values, principles, documentation to set up your family compass or constitution, to be able to manage your family office effectively and do that, with grace, because that's going to be another hard thing for people to do on the other side of this. You made these investments, you've spent time, suffered, sweat, bled for this stuff, and then people are going to just ask for handouts on things. And you want to have a structured way that you can say yes, but there's a process for that. And that's what they help people structure for us and for the community over there in the mastermind. And I haven't said this, but if you want to join the mastermind, we would love to have you in there. We have over 17,000 people there in the group. All you got to do is go over to beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, gets you the first month for $2 in Carbon One or Social. Try it out. If you like it, stay. If you think you get value, stay. If you don't, it's month to month, no contract. You can cancel anytime. Kyle, he says, hey, Jake, really appreciate you. Appreciate you, man. Thank you for the super chat and taking your time out of your evening to come watch the live and ask a good question. He says, if the U.S. helps Japan manage an orderly carry trade unwind, does that weaken or delay your XRP appreciation theory, or is it a liquidity crisis, and is that still inevitable? I think the U.S. has positioned themselves perfectly to orchestrate this on the exact timeline that they would like to do so. Because Japan was so dependent on the Strait of Hormuz for their energy, and we are now their lifeline in multiple capacities, if we decide to sever that lifeline at any moment, we can basically make this happen, at the drop of a hat. So at any point we decide we're no longer going to export oil, or that they can no longer post the treasuries with repo, or that we're going to call the debt on that now that they've done that and gotten dollars and swapped them for yen to be able to strengthen their currency. Where are we at on the yen versus the USD? I looked earlier today and we're back up at 159, continuing to drop value against the dollar. We're at 159.32, so we're almost back to 160 at this point, which is not good. We continue to fall, climb on this chart, but it's actually the yen depreciating against the dollar. If we saw another move higher, or actually lower, for the yen losing value against the dollar, I don't know that they have many tricks left in their hat in order to be able to stave that off, other than to raise interest rates. That is going to be the come to Jesus moment. And when it happens, I don't think that they're going to let the market know beforehand. I do think it's going to be an emergency meeting. They're already posturing very hawkish news for their monetary meeting next month, that they are going to be raising interest rates. They're always going to say it's less, but if they came out in an emergency meeting and moved aggressively, people will yell fire in the theater, and it will be a violent unwind that we see. Markets will lock up. And that is the scenario that I still think is going to play out. And I do think the US is going to roll that right at the right time once we have stablecoin guidance in place. They're going to likely move on Tether. I think that's a potential outcome because of their involvement with Iran. They've already frozen multiple accounts on that blockchain. Obviously, Tether is cooperating with the US government at this point. So to sanction the whole network may or may not happen. But if you did want to remove that as a player from the market to be able to allow the banks, the market share, and also the Googles and the Facebooks and the Amazons to roll out their stablecoins through the PACE Act or another mechanism, you'd want to take out the market leader so that those enterprises could then prosper. And they could very easily decide, they've sanctioned other protocols in the past with Tornado Cash. They've set precedent that they can do that. And so, Tether could be in the crosshairs and they could blame it on, their involvement with Iran if they wanted to do so. So yes, I still think there will be a violent unwind. And I do think it'd be the US that decides when that's going to happen. And then they'll blame it on Japan for raising interest rates. Everybody's got a scapegoat. They'll blame it on Iran for shutting down the Strait of Hormuz. It's the Spider-Man pointing at everybody else. All the other Spider-Mans. Conehead, interesting name. They say the Clavinator, excuse me. I'll take that. I'll take the Clavinator. He says SHIB is noted as a commodity in the drafts of the Clarity Act. Japan has approved it as the only meme coin on Laser Digital. Long outlook is positive, ? I believe SHIB and Doge will both be around. I've never bought either one of them. I don't have an allocation to either one. I've never understood meme coin culture. I've always invested in things that I thought had real world utility and price appreciation based on real world applications, or at least the potential for that. But there are huge communities around these meme coins. People are crazy about them. They're going to hold on to them, zero or hero. Elon obviously has an affinity for Doge. I think that SHIB could also fall into that category as kind of a little brother to Doge. My outlook on both of those tokens is that they will be social tokens that are backed by data that will have a standard value in the market predicated on the backing by the data. I think that Elon could use the data off of Twitter and Grok to, if there's a way to be able to quantify the value of data, then back that token, both of those potentially, and hold them at stable values. I think that SHIB's probably like 1,000th of a penny is where I think it ends up, and Doge around $1 is where I think, over the long term, those may have some price stability around those price points and be used as, some type of trading currency in certain environments or ecosystems or communities. So that's my guess. Again, just one man on the internet looking at things objectively and trying to reason. I might be way off base. They may go way higher than that. Maybe they go to the moon. If SHIB goes to $1, everybody's a trillionaire that's holding it. So, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope people make way more money than I think they're going to make on it. XRP, all gas, no brakes. Love the name. They say, hey, Jake, thanks for what you do. I'm looking forward to price appreciation. Me too, my man. And thank you for the kind words. He says, why doesn't the price money with a bunch of country have a lot of positive news? Why do we have to wait for the US for it to move? Well, if your thesis is that XRP becomes the new global reserve currency or commodity or exchange rate peg, according to the IMF, the US would probably want to maintain some type of control. If they knew that the dollar was no longer going to be the main liquidity mechanism for global trade and be no longer the global reserve currency, they would still want some say-so in that system. Obviously, Ripple is a US-based company. Ryan Kruger was from Canada. And I think BlackRock's involvement with all of this is to a much greater degree than really people understand. BlackRock in '08 was tapped to restructure the debt. They've done a good job of that, pairing bad debt with good debt and slowly, weeding that out over time. But there is a debt problem. We're at $40 trillion worth of debt. We spend more on the interest payments every single day here in the US than we do the US military and healthcare combined. It's a lot of money just to service the debt that's out there. So we need an asset in order to be able to restructure the debt, borrow against, rebalance that debt, offset things on balance sheets. And the US, if Ripple's a US based company and we wanted to say so in how this new global financial system was going to work and still remain a dominant player, that's why things haven't really shifted. And a lot of that news is predicated on Ripple's licenses, right? A lot of people get excited about Ripple's acquisitions and all the things that they've done. The whole premise of the lawsuit was that XRP is not a security of Ripple. So if the price were to move predicated on announcements from Ripple, it would be a security of Ripple. There would be tangible evidence that the actions of that company were directly correlated to the price appreciation of this asset, and it would not be separated. So their efforts and licenses and all the other things that are happening with the adoption of their infrastructure for banks cannot be the catalyst for the price move on XRP. It needs to be other players in the ecosystem adopting this technology outside of the scope of Ripple, the ETFs and other mechanisms to be able to drive liquidity into the asset, other people adopting the XRPL for different use cases and tokenization of RWAs, and utilizing the infrastructure at an institutional level that will inevitably drive the demand for it and then the price appreciation, which Ripple would then benefit from, obviously, because they've set themselves up. Beautiful. So I don't know if that answers your question directly, but that is my thesis as to why we haven't seen a lot of positive price action based on other countries' adoption or interactions with Ripple. David, Mr. Miranda, he says, legend. What's up, my dude? Thinking of getting a hair transplant. Pros and cons, experience, want to stay away from finasteride and dutasteride. So I don't take finasteride or dutasteride. I put some different, I have, how do I say this? Curlier hair than most people. My hair has a lot of volume. And so, I use oils, castor oil, and some other ointments and stuff to help my scalp. You really just want blood flow to your scalp. DHT is the molecule that you're discussing there with finasteride and dutasteride that causes hair loss, which is a derivative of testosterone. Your body converts to DHT. You still need healthy levels of DHT because other stuff gets messed up. And I think that's the point you're making here. You don't want to take those drugs. I would do it again in a heartbeat. I don't know if many of you probably didn't watch my stuff early on when my hairline was horrible. It is much better now. I'm 2 years removed from that surgery. I went to Turkey and got it done. Fantastic experience. I will say, we had the luxury. They reached out to us and said, hey, if you film this and put it on your YouTube channel, we'll take care of a lot of it for you. So it was a lesser expense for me to get it done. But irrespective of that, I still would have paid full price for it. I think it was like $4,000 is what they charge at Estee Mart Clinic there in Turkey. It is a long plane ride from here. But if you want to go check out Istanbul and tour the aqueducts and all the other stuff that they have there, very cool place to be. Like just to see other cultures and how other people operate in the world. Beautiful scenery. Would definitely go back. So at some point, I'm thinning a little bit through here. I will probably go back and get another hair transplant toward the top of my head. But you can see, my hairline on the front. I did 2,500 grafts off the back and sides of my head. I was 35 now, so 33 when I got that done. But my hairline was receding. The front of my hairline was horrible. Obviously, I'd done some bodybuilding and some other things that had probably exacerbated my hair loss, which I no longer do, at least to that level. But it was about 3 months before you really kind of looked close to normal again. They will shave your head. There is swelling. You do have to be careful with it. It will scab over. It's real ugly. You look like an ugly duckling for about 4 to 5 months. But on the other side of that, the hair growth is great. I've had no issues with it. I had no complications with the surgery. Like I said, to look rough for 4 or 5 months to have a full head of hair again, I had a lot of self-confidence issues about that. And I'm sure many other men feel the same way. Helped me out a lot. So I would recommend it. I'm an advocate for it. Again, if you want to reach out to us, we can give you the information there for Estee Mart Clinic, but there are plenty of good clinics all around the world. Turkey, is kind of known for that at this point. There was like 7 or 8 other people in the hotel we stayed in that also got the procedure done at the same time. And on the plane ride home, there's a bunch of us with the headbands on that had gone there to get that. But they do teeth. They do a bunch of cosmetic surgery over there. If you try to get that done here in the US, it's going to cost you around 15 grand to get a good doctor. So, what's the cost to benefit? You got to fly 14 hours to save 10 grand. Some people that's worth it. Some people it's not. Post price appreciation, it may not be worth it. But I will say, again, if you get the chance to go to Turkey, highly recommend. Istanbul was awesome. We got Jack. He says, Jake, if the big play to shore up the bond market is stablecoins, and you believe we are close to that playing out, why do these so-called bond vigilantes seem to have so much leverage to make Besant flinch? So the Treasury and the strategic reserve and what they're doing, the $5 trillion basically that they're going to use to buy the bond curve, they're buying the long end of the bond curve. So the 10, 20, 30, 40 years, like those are the bonds that they're buying. People that are buying, issuing stable coins, they're buying the short end of the yield curve. So, the shortest term treasury all the way up to maybe a 5-year treasury is kind of the market that they're going to play in. So the US Treasury and our government wants to stabilize the long end of the bond curve, and the banks and institutions that are going to be issuing stable coins are going to stabilize the short end of the bond curve. So that is what that money is for and why they are getting involved, because if they don't, the long end of the bond curve could go much, much higher because, all of those treasuries are going to be flowing back here to the US, in my opinion. Ishmael, good to see you. He says, I wait 6 months in current 3% small home, hope rates down. 6 months currently in 3%. I don't know. I do think that they're going to lower interest rates here in the US. I think they're going to have to. I think that they're going to be able to move to real-time settlement for things and increase the velocity of money, and that will allow them to reduce M2 money supply enough with more money, moving around through the economy instead of, the velocity of money being the lowest it's ever been in history. They could reduce M2 money supply and actually lower interest rates here in the US. So I do think we're going to see interest rates come down. The other reason they haven't done that is because the bond yields need to pay enough to meet the spread for the reverse carry trade. And if we lower our rates aggressively, that would also cause the reverse carry trade to unwind as people rotate out of US treasuries and buy Japanese bonds. But on the other side of the carry trade, yeah, bring the rates back down for at least a little while. Two, big 18-month build now at 6%, hope rates down. Great. Congratulations on building another property and a new home. 6% is great on a note if you got that in the current market environment. But I do think, hopefully we'll be able to refinance later on. And then lastly, he says, just buy a new medium home. Oh, these are the options that he's putting out here. Just buy a new medium home now, go from 3 to 6. So one is in your current home at 3% interest for 6 months. I'd just stay there out of all the options. That sounds like the best one. Sounds like you want to move. Maybe your wife wants to upgrade your lifestyle. My wife also wants a new home, which I do owe her, candidly. I did some things, a few years ago when we were saving for that, and I haven't fulfilled on that. So I do owe her that. It sounds like you might be in a similar spot. So yeah, I think 6 months from now, we will see lower interest rates and it'll be a lot more economical to either build or buy. Building a house is probably going to be, I was going to say cheaper, but timber and oil I think are going to rise in the short term here. There's going to be a bit more cost on the production of materials. So I think you might come into a little bit more money than you're anticipating, and maybe a shorter time frame as interest rates come down, and you might be able to buy the big home that you're looking for. So if that's the fourth option, hang out for 6 months where you're at with the current 3% interest, which is like free money compared to where rates are today, and then, you know, wait it out for interest rates to come down. I think we'll be back around 5% to purchase homes in the next 6 months is my guess. You know, and that's just one man's guess, you know, so it could be the other way. I don't know. DFW Mike says, hello again, boss man. Saturday, Wisconsin meetup was awesome, or what will be awesome. Going to sit down around the campfire and tell ghostly XRP stories. Wish you could be here. You know, I would take the weather that you got up there, Mike, over here in Texas. It was 107 degrees today here in Dallas. Up north, 65, sitting around a campfire sounds real good right about now. So kudos to you for being up there. I hope you enjoy it, and I'm excited for all the people that you're going to be hosting up there at the meetup. If you are in the mastermind or want to join the mastermind, you want to go to that meetup, he'll have the location, you know, there in the group. We do have a lot of people like DFW Mike that put on local meetups all across the US and around the world that are part of the mastermind group, so that you can meet other cool people close to you. Might have a neighbor 2 streets over that you don't even know has a bunch of XRP that'll show up to that meetup. We've had that happen. And then, you know, it's just like stepbrothers, and people are like, did we just become best friends? John Stamos. This person says, good evening. Have a 17-year-old that wants a future in engineering field. Okay. What courses or programs should he take to learn about managing and developing his financial wealth, future wealth? Oh, man. I wouldn't say go to college for it, candidly. There's about 3 classes that I took for my finance degree that I still use in any capacity. I will say that it gave me the context for higher level learning around finance. So, you know, if you're looking for that, I think you could do that through basic courses on the internet, though. I don't think you need to go to college and spend tens of thousands of dollars in student debt in order to be able to get that information. YouTube is a fantastic tool. You could literally type in financial education on YouTube. Patrick Bet-David's way of doing this, which I think is actually brilliant, is if you really were disciplined for 2 years, so you took it as serious as a college degree, you went on Amazon and you read the top 20 books for personal development, finance, business, maybe engineering, right? If that is his interest, you know, top reviewed, top 20 books in each one of those categories. And you just were heads down for 2 years and read all of that information and absorbed it. I think that that would be a better education than pretty much anything else you could do. Now, I don't know what his appetite for reading is. I am not a reader. I drink my books. I listen to audiobooks when I'm driving or doing other things. I also listen to them on 2 times speed. I didn't start doing that. I had to kind of ratchet my way up to that. But if I have it on 2 times, like, I have to actually listen and pay attention to what they're saying in order to know what's going on. So it helps me focus, and I get through the book twice as fast, obviously. So, you know, there's a reason that, you know, millionaires and billionaires often are avid readers. If you can read, you know, I think it's like 10 books a year, you're in the top 1% of readers. It's really not that many. You know, like I mentioned in my most recent video here, I've read about 200 books over the past 5 years. So call it 40 books a year, not one a week that I read. But that would be, I think, the fastest way to get a really good 2-year degree, that you're going to get way more information and way more knowledge than you would at a college. And at that point, he'd be 19 years old with all that information. Wow. Like, yeah. So the book that I just made the video about, if you guys haven't watched it on YouTube, is Think and Grow Rich. Highly recommend that book. Probably the most dramatic effect on my life of any book I've ever read in the past 5 years, or really ever. And I have a book that just came out. If you guys want to go check it out, and leave me a review over there on Amazon. It is called Everybody Gets to Win. Everybody Gets to Win. Jake Claver. Jeez, can't type. There we go. I think it's listed on Amazon. Yeah, you should be able to go find it over there. So it's like 99 cents to download it. But you guys should go check it out. Let me know what you think. It's a parable about all the lessons that I've learned talking to rich people on how they think about life. Some true events, that I've experienced, or at least close to true events that I've experienced in the book. And hopefully you guys like that. So I think it's cool. But it teaches some of the same lessons that are in Think and Grow Rich, and then also other, just kind of breaks down paradigms that I had as far as like wealthy people and how I thought about them and money growing up. If I put my Wyoming LLC at DAG 100K, would I be making profit at this point? 100K XRP is what I'm assuming you are stating. Maybe $100,000 worth of XRP. Not sure which one. Either way, candidly, no. We don't have a way for everybody to participate in products today. We are diligently working on that. We will be launching the product September 1st. It's a limited capacity. It's basically a pilot for the way that we're going to be rolling out strategies through the rest of the year in an SMA infrastructure. I think it's almost full at this point for the go live date, September 1st. We are just, a few days away here from that. But the credit line and everything that we've done with that will continue to expand. We'll continue to grow that offering. It is a little bit higher risk. It's a structured income product. The yield bearing products, we have multiple counterparties that we would like to work with. The friction, there's multiple frictions that I could run through with you guys on that, but we do anticipate that one of these counterparties that we would like to work with is going to move forward here in the next couple months. And then there won't be a bandwidth or limit on who can participate in that product. And we will be able to service all of our clients to be able to generate more than enough returns to be able to cover the AUM fees associated with our services, plus the extra to be able to produce income for you on a monthly basis. Shane, he says, God bless the gun show and the Tea Queen, Beyond Broke Mastermind, Carbon One, DAG app. Excited to earn yield. Please discuss 1% rich list, kids, and retirement income focused plans, not financial advice, of course. Okay, so two different objectives here. 1% rich list kids. So I'm assuming your children, right? So if you fall in that category, you've got more than, what's the rich list say today? Rich-list.info. On the statistics over here, top 1% of wallets that hold XRP currently have to have more than 80,932 XRP. So actually, excuse me, that's how many wallets there are, because there are almost 88.1 million wallets on the XRP ledger. Very cool. It's actually about 45,000 XRP would put you in the top 1% of wallet addresses. So let's say XRP goes to $1,000, just to make the math easy here. We're going to add 3 zeros to the end of that. So we've got about $45 million. Over time, that will continue to appreciate. You're likely going to want to structure trusts and other things to hold those assets to protect them from creditors, provide yourself anonymity in certain transactions, separate them from your taxable estate, potentially, depending on what you want to do and your objectives, set up foundations, other philanthropic things, because I think that's the tip of the iceberg. In my mind, XRP goes to $1 million over the next 10, 20 years. So if that's the case, now we're talking about $4.5 billion at $1 million XRP. It's a lot of money. And we don't want to set up our kids to be trust fund kids, right? So the way that we help people structure trusts in the letter of wishes and the family constitution, a lot of what Honest Aim and other people in the group help with, you get to set the parameters. So things that I'm doing for my son, I'll speak to, my mindset around this because I can't tell you what to do for your kids. There's 4 different things that I'm going to do for him. One is fund an insurance policy, separate of anything to do with XRP, that'll be worth $1 million by the time he's about 25 years old. What that will allow him to do is access that liquidity at his discretion for buying a home, cars, start a business, down payment on apartment complex, whatever he wants to do. Hopefully I've done a good enough job that he's a good steward of that when I transition the policy to him, and he then has that capability, which again won't be till he's like 25 years old. I will also pay for any education that he wants, whether that's college or trade school or really anything else, as long as he attends 3 different events each year that the family stipulates. So he can be an underwater basket weaver if he wants to, but he's going to know how to sell those and run a business around it, how to manage his margins and everything else that it would take to actually make money with those underwater baskets he wove. We will also match his income at the end of each year in a lump sum that he has to invest. He cannot live off of it as long as he makes at least 6 figures. So he has to make at least $600,000 or $100,000 doing something, providing value in society in order to be able to get that at the end of the year. And then again, it has to go into investments. He cannot live off of it. And then what's the last piece? I don't know. I'd have to look through the trust. But anyway, you can set up these parameters. So I tell my child and people that work here at TAG, there's a carrot and there's a stick, right? I'm a carrot chaser. If you tell me how high to jump to get whatever the prize is, I will figure out how to jump that high to get the prize. I am outcome driven. Some people are not outcome driven. They require the stick. And so, when you're setting these things up, you want to provide incentives so that people chase things, and hopefully they're able to cultivate that into their personality, and then they apply that to other things. And then also, if you do certain things, you don't get to participate in the benefits that we're going to provide. And you can call that, governing beyond the grave, or, all these other things. But it's not really to enforce certain rules. It's to cultivate certain values, traits, and beliefs in future generations so that they do not squander this, and they do continue to provide value in society, create opportunities for other people, and give back and bless others with the abundance that we're going to receive. So our team's happy to work with you on that. That is one of the things that you get when you work with us on the irrevocable trust, is that, family constitution and all that, all those different pieces. And then the other piece for structured income or retirement focused products or plans, not financial advice, we have a full program at DAG Wealth that is focused on financial planning. Every client gets a basic plan when they work with us. Talk to your advisor about it. You get access to the software that we use for it. If you do want a higher level plan, depending on the assets that you hold, your business interest and other stuff, some people have more complicated situations that need a little bit more attention. We do have paid products that are, quarterly payments where you sit down with the advisor and they go through every single line item you have and help you plan everything out for your retirement. A lot of our clients do have retirement accounts or wrappers that they have invested in over their lifetime. They've worked for companies that have matched 401ks, and they've rolled those to self-directed 401ks or IRAs. A lot of those are Roth stuff. We manage, crypto IRAs. So if you have an IRA, or, you want a crypto IRA and you want to transfer that over, we'd love to work with you on that. We do have an algorithmically traded product that's already on the market that's generating returns inside those accounts, aggregating more XRP and cash for people inside their IRA that's already deployed and doing very well for our clients over here. And we will continue to roll out retirement-based products. You're kind of limited in the capacity that you can utilize the assets inside that wrapper. You cannot leverage the principal. And so because of that, option strategies or algorithmic trading strategies are really the only 2 ways that you can facilitate additional returns inside of those accounts. 401ks do now allow for direct allocation to crypto. That was not true in the past. A lot of the infrastructure providers have not caught up with that regulation yet, so it's not something that we are able to provide today, but it is something we're working on. And again, all of this would be disclosed in a conversation with one of our financial advisors. So my recommendation, again, I am biased. I think we have the best advisors in the world for digital assets and this purpose that you're discussing. But there are other good advisors out there. Interview us, interview other people, and figure out who you're going to work with in order to be able to help structure that for you and your family. I am way beyond the hour, so I am not going to get to all these super chats because I have been giving extra on some of the questions tonight. If I missed your super chat, I do appreciate it. Please email it in to us at info@dag.com. They will get it over to my wife. She will get it to me, and I will read it on Mondays live next week. All right, so we're going to go to the bottom. We're going to work our way back up. Silverado Man, he says, don't you sound as confident. You don't sound as confident about 4 digits by the end of the year. Maybe that's just a show. Maybe I am still extremely confident, but I'm trying to taper that a little bit for public perception. Christ is King says, China hacked the Federal Reserve today. Thoughts? Could we see them in the Fed? They also are talking about an 18-month grid outage. What happens to crypto then? Crypto's fine. So so let's talk about the XRPL. There are underground bunkers that have nodes in them. There are nodes that are run all across the world. There's over 450 something nodes on the XRPL. There's 35 UNL validators. Many of those are international as well. All of those verify transactions on the network. If one jurisdiction were to go down or have a power problem, it's not going to affect the network. The network's going to continue to run without any interruption. And there's also ways to be able to facilitate value transfer utilizing the XRPL offline and reconcile that back to the network. That's one of the main pieces and why I think institutions will adopt it. So I'm not overly concerned about the power outage as far as crypto goes. Now, infrastructure and your ability to access food and power are a big thing. There's a lot of preppers out there. We have a little bit, a couple days worth of stuff. Got a lot of brass though. And so in a situation like that, I don't think there's going to be a Mad Max scenario or a blackout or an EMP or any of the crazy stuff that people prepare for, but you'd rather be prepared than not. You'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So again, not incentive, telling people to go out and buy big totes of, freeze-dried food or water or any of that. I don't think we're going to be impacted, by the energy crisis anywhere near as much here in the US as the rest of the world, because I think we're going to be the ones stopping the export of oil in order to be able to refill our reserves and make sure that our people here are taken care of. And we're not overly dependent on the Strait of Hormuz anyway. We were like the smallest dot on the chart of countries that were affected by that. China hacking the Fed. What are they going to do? Print more money? Like, I don't know. Obviously, there's cyber warfare. There's economic warfare. There's financial warfare. I think the days of hand-to-hand combat and people dying in masses in wars, I hope are behind us. I don't think that there's going to be a nuclear risk or any of that in the near future. Obviously, that's kind of the whole premise behind what we're doing in Iran. I think we've come to the conclusion that that's not good for anybody. And, the G7 and the G20 have really kind of got a handshake deal that nobody's going to do that. Now, not to say that you don't carry a big stick and threaten to use it every once in a while like Trump does. But I think that's kind of the last ditch effort and resort on this stuff. So anyway, I don't know. I don't know that it has any impact on anything. Obviously, it caught some headlines today, but I don't really have any concern about it personally. It's not the underwater sea cables in the Strait of Hormuz. It's not Tether. It's not the reverse carry trade. All the stuff that I'm looking at, what I think is going to be the black swan in the crisis. Soak and Alba and jojoba oil to protect my hair. Okay, there you go. That's probably what I need to do. Sounds like you and I have similar hair. We've got Breaking Seals. They say, hey, Jake, new Carbon One member here. Awesome, dude. All the way from Australia. Glad to have you in the community. From Down Under. Just wanted to say we appreciate everything that you do for the community. I've learned a lot since watching your channel. Hopefully one day when you're in Dubai, we will get to meet. I will be there, my man. Like I said, we plan on opening an office sometime in the middle of next year in that jurisdiction. And I think a lot of people from Australia will be making their way to Dubai and Abu Dhabi after price appreciation. Only Today Matters. Interesting perspective and name. Opened my Anchorage account. Awesome. Haven't transferred my XRP yet. As it appreciates, would like to offset custody costs with yield. When can I expect that? Again, that's predicated on our partners moving. We have multiple options in that capacity that we're pursuing, and I'm confident that we'll have that done here in the next few months. One way or another, hell or high water, we're going to get it done. My team, that is their number one objective. So, and at this point, we've hired the right people. Again, I'm very biased on this, but I think we have the best people in the whole ecosystem of crypto when it comes to wealth management and digital assets. I don't think there is a better team of people out there in the market. We have worked with almost every large custodian in some capacity, had conversations with other people. We were just at SALT last week. People are starting to pay attention and their ears are perking up when we're having conversations because of the team members that we've been able to bring on. So really excited about that. I'm, again, super blessed and humbled and grateful for people's willingness to come work here and see the vision and be able to execute on that. And I have full faith that our team will get that across the line in the not too distant future. Mickey C, he says, hey, Big Jake and the T Lady, Carbon One DAG client, I'm going to Swell in October. We will have a Beyond Broke Mastermind meetup there, ? That's the plan. We do anticipate having one meetup for the group there in New York around Swell. We have the office there in New York at this point at One Rockefeller. So, with that comes some additional perks that we could potentially use to host an event there in New York. And we will keep you guys updated on that. Breaking Seals, they asked a question below. I appreciate the super chat. We got Reed, Mr. Scott. He says, 10,000 hot dogs, diamond hands, not a people person, but I do look forward to the philanthropic part of all this at high prices. Yield is there. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to also give back. That's what I view my purpose is, Reed. There's a lot of good things that I want to do, associations and charities that I want to have an impact on, but I feel like the largest impact that our group and community are going to have over the long term are the philanthropic endeavors and the causes that people are going to be able to put resources toward that are going to create huge impact for other people in society. And that's kind of the whole premise behind helping a million people become financially free. If you can take care of yourself, you can take care of other people. And I think that's the main piece of the legacy that if I could pick anything to be remembered by. So I appreciate you bringing that up, the kind words, and being part of the community. And I also look forward to all the good we're going to be able to do in the not too distant future. Tapping with Ali, he says, Jim Rickard said end of year 2026 gold could be 10K to 20K. I see XRP skyrocketing alongside that. If they are going, well, they're going to have to restructure the debt. The fiscal new year ends on September 31st for governments and institutions and enterprises around the world. If you were going to restructure debt, you would probably do it around the time of the fiscal new year. I'm not saying that it will happen by September 31st, but high likelihood if, you were doing the accounting that's when you would want it done by. And I do think that gold will have to be somewhere in that range. But gold alone is not going to be able to revalue and restructure the debt. Jim Rickards has talked about this. It'd have to be $50,000 to $100,000. So there's going to have to be some other assets that the debt's restructured with, and not every country has gold either. Canada, as an example, no gold, but they have oil, and I think they might have some XRP. I think between those three assets, they'll peg oil to gold in a specific ratio, And then XRP is sit alongside that as the exchange rate peg, as the three assets that they use to restructure the debt and revalue things in this new system. Zuck Savage, he says, Jake, love you, brother. Thank you, man. Love you too. Appreciate you. He says, give me your thoughts. I have 11,500 XRP. I want to pull profits at 2,000 coins when it hits around $1,000. What would you suggest to do with the rest? I'm here for the long run. I would really understand. I would want to understand why you want to pull that profit, what you're going to be doing with that capital. And I would run a cost to benefit on that, on, again, the opportunities that you're going to have to deploy the XRP to be able to generate cash flow or be able to borrow against it. I'd want to look at the tax implications that you're going to have, how you're going to be able to offset those with that $2 million that you're going to be pulling. You know, $2 million sounds great, right? Like, money solves money problems for sure. You're going to owe, if it's long-term capital gains, $400,000 to the government. So you got a haircut right off the rip there. You know, you got 1.6 million left. I don't know if you're paying off your home or credit cards or what you're doing, but let's say you've got a home and some credit cards to the tune of $500,000. So that leaves you 1.1 million cash in the bank. Not a whole lot you can do with that. I mean, you could buy some businesses to be able to generate some substantial cash flow. You could use SBA loans to structure that. I don't know what type of lifestyle you're looking to live. The rest of the XRP could be put to work to be able to generate interest. Again, you could be able to borrow against it at fairly good interest rates. When it's those prices, I think the risk on it's going to come way down. LTV is going to come way up, and the interest rates you're going to be able to borrow against that are going to be 3 to 6%. So again, just a lot of considerations around that. I can't tell you what to do because I don't know what your long-term goals and objectives are or what you're going to be using the capital for. But if you want to speak to one of our financial advisors, they will take the time. They're happy to talk to you, have a conversation, even if you only have, you know, our minimums. We have 25,000 right now as our minimum. So I don't mean to, you know, say that that's less than or anything. That's a lot of XRP. 99.999% of the population has no XRP. So you're doing awesome. But our financial advisors would love to have a conversation with you. If you do have over 25,000 XRP and you do want institutional custody, our promotion is still live until the 4th of September. And we would love to have you over there inside of institutional custody working with us. And obviously you get the advisor, you get the financial planning, you get the insurance on your assets, you get the Anchorage account, and then you will get access to all the products and solutions we are rolling out toward the end of the year here. Druzy, he says, you have said you expect a repricing of everything in the world. Do you mean eggs $3 now and 10 cents after an effect on XRP's price? God bless. This was another portion of the conversation that I had in one of the podcasts today. So people look at a haircut on assets as they're losing money. In the scenario that I'm talking about, I do think there's going to be a revaluation of the currency, and we potentially see a substantial value increase in the dollar on the other side of this when they restructure the debt. So if your dollars were worth twice as much, stocks would be worth half as much. Homes would be worth half as much. They would be back to where they were 10 years ago, right? Or even, 5 years ago. So I think that is part of the dynamic here. So to your point, if eggs are at $6, they would be $3. If eggs are at $3, it might be $1.50. I think our currency will be worth roughly twice as much as it is now on the other side of this rebalancing and restructuring that's going to take place. Could be more than that. I mean, we could see substantially higher valuation for our currency if they were to back it the right way. I mean, the dollar's lost 97, 98% of its value since 1944. Oh, actually, earlier than that, like 1920s. So, my wife has this I don't know what the right word is, blissful picture of how it was in the 40s and 50s here in the US. A man could go work at a factory and provide for a family of 4 and have a maid and like a nice home and a car and like be able to pay all the credit lines at the end of the month for the gas station and the grocery store and everything else. That's because our money was worth more back then. It was still backed by gold. And we've lost that value over time, and it's continued to just get printed in perpetuity since 1971, and we came off the gold standard. That is the crux of the issue for our currency, because we don't use money, we use currency. And if they were to stabilize that against something, I think a lot of that value would come back, and maybe we'll move back into a situation like the 1940s here in the US, where it would just take one income to be able to support a large family. And that's really the only way we're going to incentivize people to have kids too, because the birth rate is too low. And people don't want illegals, and they don't want, to stop abortion or the ability to have abortions, which I'm not going to get into the political stuff on that side. But the whole premise behind both of those arguments is we need more people to sustain the growth and, all the debt that we've accrued, and to be able to make sure that the people that have pension funds and a retirement and 401ks and their social security continue to get paid. Because as it sits right now, there are way too many people retiring and not enough people working. AI will offset a lot of that, though. So at least that's the promise of it. Poppy Dude, like poppy seeds. He says, Jake, few people ask me about your username. Well, grandkids call me Poppy. It's not the seed. Dude is my pronoun. Love you guys. Appreciate you, man. Yeah, I've had the same question. I was running at the same direction. Grandkids call you Poppy. Very cool. All right, we're going to grab, actually, I think I got through, here's one more. We got 3 digits. Diglets? They say, what are your thoughts on AVAX? Are you still bullish on them? Yeah, AVAX will be around. They have a public blockchain, but they have subnets that are private. Avalanche has a lot of enterprise applications that are being actually used and implemented today, and we've seen a lot of price appreciation on AVAX and use of that network. And I think that'll continue to be the case in the future. It's interoperable with a lot of things. Yeah, bullish on AVAX over the long term. If you ask me, you got a gun to my head and tell me, pick a price, I don't think I could do that. But over the long term, I do think it will be substantially higher than what it is today. Dark 30, good to see you. They say, Jake, you have over 10,000 XRP, which was your limit, and you have over 20K ready to diversify, just sitting in an HSA. What are you doing? Thanks, because I can't give you financial advice, but if I could tell you what, if I was in that scenario, how I would play it. I've got over 10,000 XRP, which was what I was trying to get to, and I've got $20,000 in an HSA. So it's a health savings account. For those that don't know what an HSA is, you can use that money for a couple different reasons. Most of the time, people do invest it in stocks. I don't know who your HSA is with, so that would also kind of determine what you could invest in with it. It is a tax-free account if you spend it the right way. XRP, you want to diversify. XRP ETFs, Evernorth, buy the SPAC before it goes up. Again, that's what I would do, but I'm also all in on XRP. So I'm probably not the right person to ask on that. But I think that health savings account, if you were to look at those plays and place some capital, would probably turn out pretty good for you. Mick Baseball, good to see you. They say, trying to take the wife on a nice New York trip. Should I book Hawaii or Red Roof Inn based on expectation of price appreciation? I don't know when the trip is, my man. If it's next week, I don't know that we're going to make it. But if it's, later in the year, so oh, it's New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve, not New York City. Okay. Yeah, Hawaii. I think Hawaii. The Kapua Suite. Hook it up, man. A White House, excuse me. If you hold more XRP than XX amount of XRP, but less than more than 3 digits, but less than 5 digits, what would your off-road strategy be? What would your off-road strategy be? I mean, am I getting like a Baja? I like a Ford Raptor, and I would send it to Hennessy and get it souped up so that I could take it off road and go through dunes and stuff. I don't know if that's what you're asking or not. I don't know what off-road strategy means. Road maybe is like taking profits. I guess I'm probably, you guys probably know what's going on here, and I just don't. It's too late for me. I'm going to assume it's like taking profits in like your planned post price appreciation is the direction I'm going to take it. So you have 4 digits effectively. You have more than 3, less than 5. So we're going to say your middle of the road 5,000 XRP. Again, to answer these questions, I have no context. I don't know what your goals are. I don't know how many mouths you have to feed. I don't know what your age is. I don't know what your risk tolerance is. I don't know what you're comfortable investing in. There's so many different aspects to this that would be just me guessing that I'd just be shooting in the dark. So again, that was that'd be one, and I'm selling my own services here, and I know I'm beating a dead horse, and I probably sound like a salesman, which I don't like, but candidly, like I have no way to really, I don't have enough context to provide you anything that's a good answer. So my recommendation would be talk to a financial advisor, give them all that information so that they know what your goals and your hopes and your dreams are, and that the lifestyle that you want to live and how that's going to work out. And then they can work backwards with you to be able to structure that with your XRP to accomplish those things. If you have that amount, it's probably going to take you longer to get there. If you have, I don't want to say lavish, but higher expectations for your lifestyle and things that you want to accomplish, if you got 5, 6, 7, 8 digit XRP, you're probably there real soon, right? But if you've got 3 to 5 digits, it's probably going to take you a little bit longer to get to that level. It will happen, in my opinion. I think a $10,000 plus XRP is inevitable, even in the next 2 years, likely. But those that have a bit more are probably going to get to those prices a little bit sooner, or the thresholds that they're looking for a little bit sooner, and be able to upgrade their lifestyle, while those that haven't been afforded the opportunity to have that much discretionary income up to this point in their life, may take a little bit longer. That's okay. I don't think it's going to be that much longer. And we do have a webinar on Friday if you guys want to go register for that. We got a lot of people. I'm watching my phone ding with the Luma invites here while I'm on the TikTok. If you got 5,000 XRP or more, we're going to be discussing a lot of that in the webinar, giving you guys tangible things to take away from it. We're trying to provide a lot of value for those that are in that camp here on Friday. So go check out that webinar. It is listed over there on Twitter and the other platforms if you would like to register for it. And if you register for it and you don't show up, you will get the recording via email. CRU 589. They say, I'm low on the DAG XRP holder list on fixed income. How are you progressing on the yield product? Everybody wants the yield product, believe me. Like, nobody wants the yield product more than I do, to help people afford AUM fees after price appreciation. That is my biggest fear. That is literally what keeps me up at night. I've told you guys that before, because I do believe there's going to be substantial price appreciation. And if we don't have a way to be able to offset those fees, even if it's 40 bips for the majority of our client base, that's still a large amount of money. Let's say you got $10 million and you're paying 40 bips, that's $40,000 a year. We need to be generating you more than an additional $40,000 a year. Otherwise, like, what are we doing? So I am aware of that. Our team is aware of that. We are working diligently for it. And I do believe in the next 30 to 60 days, we will have one of these partners across the line for a yield product. I'm going to take 2 more and then we'll wrap it up tonight. We get CJ, Magical Adventures. He says, evening legend. What's up, my dude? Mercury is already offering real-time settlement on payments. They sent info out via email today. Bet they did. I bet they did. Appreciate the update on that. Collins, JC says, hi Jake, what does the repricing look like to you? Does it just bounce from there? Where is it now? Where it is now to $100 plus overnight or gradually? Thanks for everything you do, big fella. Love from Aussie, from down under. We love the Aussies. I think people from Texas and people from Australia are very similar. At least, I've never been to Australia. It's on the bucket list. Would love to go to the Gold Coast and snorkel there on the Great Barrier Reef and check out Sydney and Melbourne. That will happen in the not too distant future. So maybe we'll catch you out there, or maybe in Dubai, if that's where you end up. I think we're going to see a run to 50 or 100 bucks in a very short period of time. I then think the rest of this stuff's going to unwind. I think we're going to get a pullback. On the other side of that pullback, I think we then see substantially higher prices for XRP as they pour additional liquidity into it. So I think they're going to run it up. I think most people are going to sell at least a portion of their bag on the way up here when we see this run. And then, on the other side of that, there's going to be a repricing event as they continue to pour liquidity into it and issue assets on the network and utilize it for settlement at a global scale. So I think that answers your question. I think it's going to be a very quick move. I don't think it'll be a gradual experience. I think we could get to 50 or 100 bucks in a 24-hour period when it's time. All right. That is unfortunately going to be all the time I have tonight. I've got a couple more super chats I know I missed here. So again, if you guys could email those in and over to our team, info@dag.com, and they will get to me and I will read them on the Monday live. As always, if you want to go check it out and learn more, get close to the community, participate in all the events that we throw, access to information around financial education and business resources. Have a ton of that over there in the mastermind. You can go to beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar gets you the first month for $2. Try it out month to month, no contract, cancel anytime. And if you need help structuring an exit plan, setting up LLCs, setting up trust, having these conversations to understand, what the outcome in the future is going to look like in order to meet your goals and objectives, our team would love to work with you. Again, right now we're running that promotion. 25,000 XRP is the minimum to onboard over there at DAG Wealth, get access to the best institutional custody that's out there in the market. All you got to do is go over there to dag.com. There's cards there, whichever section suits you and your needs. Reach out, and our team will have a conversation with you to help you through whatever you're working on. And that's gonna be it. Hope you guys have a wonderful Wednesday night, a wonderful week. God bless, and we'll see you on the next one.